Most of us will know the 1967 animated movie, The Jungle Book. We are familiar with the exploits of Baloo singing about the bare necessities and crazy King Louie, who wanted to be like you. But the real Jungle Book is far less whimsical and contains more stories than the one about Mowgli the Man-Cub. Rudyard Kipling's 1894 book was partially inspired by Indian folktales and is set against the backdrop of the British Raj in India. So let's explore the history behind each chapter in the Jungle Book. Rudyard Kipling was born on December 30, 1865 in Mumbai, which was called Bombay under British rule. At the age of 6, he was taken to England, where he spent an unhappy childhood in foster care and boarding schools. In 1882, Kipling returned to India, where he lived until 1889. While he loved India, he believed the British Raj was necessary, as he felt Indians could not govern themselves. Kipling used his knowledge of local vernacular, giving most of his characters names that are transliterations of the Hindustani words for their species. For example, Baloo means bear, Bagheera means Black Panther, Kaa means python, and Shere Khan roughly translates to tiger ruler. So by watching Disney's The Jungle Book, you inadvertently learn some Hindi. Chapter 1. Mowgli's Brothers. The first 4 chapters are about a human boy raised in the jungle. Chapter 1 describes how wolves raised the lost boy with the help of other jungle animals. This part of the story may be loosely based on the case of Dina Sanikar. In February 1867, a group of hunters spotted a 6-year-old boy living with a pack of wolves in Bulandshahr, India. The hunters decided that the boy needed to be returned to civilization and smoked him out of the cave to capture him, killing the protective female who was trying to defend her cub. The local magistrate sent the boy to an orphanage where he was named after the day he arrived, Saturday or Sanikar. On arrival at the orphanage, Sanikar could not walk upright, preferring to walk on all fours. He also could not speak, but growled and whimpered like a wolf. He only ate raw meat and gnawed at the bones, imitating the behavior of his earlier adopted family. Those who ran the orphanage could not understand his learned behaviors and attributed them to mental impairment. Father Erhardt, a missionary in charge of the orphanage, wrote, "He cannot talk, and though undoubtedly Pagal, a simpleton, still shows signs of reason and sometimes actual shrewdness." Sanikar spent the rest of his life at the orphanage, and although he eventually learned to dress himself, stand upright, and walk on 2 legs, he never uttered a word. The orphanage encouraged him to eat from a plate, but he always sniffed his food first. The only human habit that Sanikar picked up with enthusiasm was smoking, which is thought to have contributed to his death from tuberculosis at age 34. As he was not the only case of a wolf child being found in India at the time, it is possible reports of Sanikar and others inspired Kipling's character Mowgli. This chapter of the Jungle Book ends with Mowgli bringing fire to scare off Shere Khan, who had threatened him and his wolf family. His actions proved to the animals that he will always be inherently human and must leave the jungle. Chapter 2. Kaa's Hunting. In the second chapter, Mowgli is captured by the Bandar-log, a group of monkeys living in an ancient city's ruins. The book's description of this event is far more harrowing than in the film, and the character of King Louie was a Disney creation. In the book, Kaa, the snake, is an uneasy ally to Bagheera and Baloo and helps them rescue Mowgli by hypnotizing the monkeys. Bagheera and Baloo almost come under his spell, but Mowgli rouses them, remarking, "It is only old Kaa making circles on the dust." Most Indian folk stories have cobras, which come into a story later on in the Jungle Book. But here, Kipling uses the common myth that snakes hypnotize their prey into standing still. Chapter 3. Tiger, Tiger. Mowgli goes to a nearby village and is adopted by a couple who believe him to be their long-lost son. Unlike his real-life counterparts, Mowgli quickly learns to speak and is indoctrinated into village life, leading the village boys who herd the buffalo. This integration of Mowgli into human life starkly contrasts with the story of most feral children. It would be very likely that by imitating animal communication rather than words, Mowgli would have missed the window of opportunity for learning speech. It could be argued that many themes in the Jungle Book show the need to prove that humans and animals are vastly different and so-called civilized behavior is innate. This theme reflects the British Raj's motives to try and civilize India and their steadfast belief that the British way of life was superior and something that any human would aspire to. Mowgli's story ends with him causing a stampede of buffalo to trample Shere Khan. Afterward, Mowgli skins Shere Khan with his bare hands, and wearing the tiger's skin, returns to the jungle to live with the wolves until he reaches manhood. Chapter 4. The White Seal. Strangely, for a book entitled The Jungle Book, the second story doesn't take place in a jungle. In fact, it takes place in pretty much the antithesis of the jungle, the Arctic. The tale focuses on a seal called Kotick, born with rare pure white coloring. He discovers that seals are being hunted for their skins and goes on a quest to find somewhere seals would be safe from humans. The backdrop for this story was the Bering Sea dispute, which took place from 1881 to 1893. The dispute was between the U.S. on one side and Great Britain and Canada on the other, and the subject of the conflict was the international status of the Bering Sea. It started when the U.S. claimed authority over the Bering Sea to control the seal hunting off the Alaskan coast. It reasoned that the Bering Sea was closed waters under the Russians, and as the U.S. had bought Alaska in 1867, it had succeeded the Russian rights. Britain refused to recognize this claim. So in 1886, the U.S. government started to seize ships that were found hunting seals in the waters of the Bering Sea. Seal hunting had drastically shrunk seal herds, so in 1891, it was agreed that British and U.S. vessels would patrol the area to deter seal hunters. Eventually, more restrictions prohibited sealing during the summer breeding months. Chapter 5. Rikki-Tikki-Tavi. This tale is set in India and is lifted from an Indian folktale, specifically Book 5 of the Panchatantra, which tells stories of caution and the benefit of assessing all the facts before taking action. The Panchatantra is an ancient Indian collection of folktales written in Sanskrit. It is dated around 200 BCE, but was likely based on older stories. The legend that inspired Kipling's Rikki-Tikki-Tavi was entitled The Loyal Mongoose and told of a woman who left her baby in the care of her mongoose friend. Upon her return, she sees blood around the mongoose's mouth and kills it, assuming the mongoose has killed her baby. Then, the woman finds her baby alive and realizes that the blood around the mongoose's mouth is because it had killed a snake in defense of her child. The Kipling version is expanded and altered, with the mongoose, Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, washing up in the garden of an English family living in India after a huge flood. The family nurses Rikki-Tikki-Tavi back to health and decides to keep him as a house pet. In the garden of the family's home live two black cobras. The cobras terrorize the other animals in the garden and plot to kill the English family. Eventually, Rikki-Tikki-Tavi kills the male cobra and, with the help of the garden birds, manages to destroy the snake's eggs. Meanwhile, the female cobra, grieving the death of her partner, has cornered the family. Rikki-Tikki-Tavi taunts the female snake with the last unhatched egg, and while the cobra begs for her baby back, the family escapes. Rikki-Tikki-Tavi then chases the snake into its den and kills her, as he cannot leave her alive for the sake of the garden animals and the family. Many now believe that Kipling's tale is an allegory extolling colonialism in India. This theory paints the English family as the British Raj, Rikki-Tikki-Tavi and the garden birds as the faithful colonized Indians, and the snakes represent rebellious Indians. In this light, the tale goes from an innocent children's story to something much more insidious. It may allude to the Indian Mutiny of 1857, in which native members of the British infantry in India rose up against their commanding officers. At the time, the East India Trading Company ruled India in all but name. The rebellion ended when reinforcements were brought from England. Chapter 6. Toomai of the Elephants. This story tells of an elephant hunter's son called Little Toomai. His father, Big Toomai, is in charge of the elephants that are in the service of the government, which are used to help catch wild elephants and break them in. Little Toomai wants to be an elephant catcher when he is older and risks his life to retrieve a harness that has fallen into the pen with the wild elephants. Excited by this experience, he asks when he can do it again, to which he is told, "When thou hast seen the elephants dance," which means never. However, during the night, the oldest elephant in Big Toomai's command takes Little Toomai into the jungle on his back, where the boy witnesses a group of elephants stamping on the ground and flattening the scrub. When he tells of what he has seen, he is dubbed Toomai of the Elephants. One of the characters in the tale, Peterson Sahib, the elephant catcher, was modeled after George Perez Sanderson. Sanderson was a British naturalist who invented a system for capturing wild elephants for use in captivity by trapping them in pits. He was born in India and later published a book entitled 13 Years Among the Wild Beasts of India. Elephants are sacred to many Indians, and how the Raj treated these sacred animals is still a point of contention. In the 1800s, hunting elephants became increasingly common, and as there were vast numbers of wild elephants, the British Raj actively encouraged the practice. The only British hunter to acknowledge the link between native Indians and elephants was Sanderson, who stated, "The elephant is essentially a native's animal. Natives alone have fully studied his peculiarities and classified him into castes. His capture, training, and keeping are in native hands, as well as the trade, and the native standard of merit regulates the market." Chapter 7. Her Majesty's Servants. The last chapter of the Jungle Book tells the story of all the animals used in war and the degrees of fear experienced by each one. From the foolhardy camels who allowed soldiers to rest their guns on their backs when they fire, to the intelligent elephants who can see inside his head what might happen and does not go near the danger. The parade of animals impresses the Afghans who are visiting, and they are told by a native officer that all men and animals obey their orders, which come from the Empress of India, Queen Victoria. While the other stories in this book allude to colonial superiority, this one outright extols the British monarchy. In fact, the finale of this story, and therefore the book, clearly demonstrates how Kipling feels about the British Empire and their assertion that complete obedience is key to a successful society. After being told of the subservience of both men and animals in India, the Afghan chief declares, "Would it were so in Afghanistan, for there we obey our own wills." To which the native officer replies, "And for that reason, your emir, whom you do not obey, must come here and take orders from our viceroy." The background of this tale comes from Kipling's own experience, witnessing a formal meeting between Abdur Rahman, the emir of Afghanistan, and the viceroy of India, Lord Dufferin. The meeting was designed to impress the Afghans and encourage mutual respect. Whatever you feel about the political aspects of this tale, probably the most interesting thing is the description of how so many animals, including horses, mules, bullocks, camels, and elephants, were used in warfare at the time. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the British occupation of India, check out our book, The British Raj, a captivating guide to the British in India, starting from the Indian Rebellion of 1857 to the Indian Independence Act of 1947. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.